Give it up for Victoria, getting you all here today. Miigwech. Miigwech. So folks, I just want to start by saying how honored I am to be able to share with all of you today. And when I say sharing, I don't own any of the knowledge or the teachings that I'll be sharing with you all today. You'll hear our elders even speak that way, that we don't own this knowledge or these teachings. They'll also say this, even though we revere our elders so much because of the experience and the journey that they've gone on, they'll also say, Bangi ganin, hatigungi kandan, anoe, I also know very little. I know very little about things. You know, folks, that is a sensation of vulnerability, right? It's also a sensation that it invites everybody else that's with us to say that we're on a learning path, right? That we're still open to learning. We're open to hearing things so we can bring them into our own minds and perspectives and then rattle them through, right? Your own upbringing, your own social norms, your own ways of life, and the things, of course, that have landed you all here today to learn about some other cultures, eh? Because I'm going to be honest with you. There's some things that are going to be said today and shared today, like I said, that will hit you here, they'll hit you here, and I think ultimately it'll be done in a safe way, in a place where we can learn together, eh? Because if all I did was stand up here and rattle out PhDs and all these other things and my incredible knowledge, you know, you're already halfway out the door, eh? You know, you're already halfway out the door. So I start by saying how humbled and honored I am to be able to do this with all of you here today. With all of you here today. And again, if you're interested in CEUs, you can get 2 CEUs out of this as you sign up. Little housekeeping, right? You know, just sign your email. We'll send out just a mass email to folks, and you can get your 2 CEUs if that's what works. So folks, what do you say we get started? Native American best practices. And if you really can't hear me back there, you know, maybe just kind of, you know, shake them out a little bit, you know, as we kind of wake. Am I good back there? Am I good? And in the front, I'm not shouting, am I? You know, I was kind of burdened or blessed with this Luciano baritone voice, right? You know, so we're going to get moving here, folks. So once again, this is me here. This is Ricky White, First Nations Consultants. And the motto and moniker for the work that I do, and again, it extends to schools, it extends to organizations. Last year it was 300 Fargo, Moorhead, Cass County homeless coalition folks right there in the park, you know, in the middle of Fargo. And the motto for the work, folks, is what is good for Native Americans is good for everyone, eh? So think about that through this whole journey that you'll be going on. Because I'll be planting some things on you to invite you. You hear that word? Invite you. I'm inviting you to connect with the things. I'm not saying this. I challenge you all. You likely have Native Americans that come into your office. You had better know what you're doing when you're talking to them. Whew! I tell you, I'm sorry, by the way. I am so sorry for pointing at you that way, you know. But didn't that feel kind of, whew, not for me, right? Instead, it's an invitation. It's an invitation, hey? Here's another teaching for you all. In all of our native languages, there is no word for I'm sorry. Any of our indigenous languages here, there's no words for I'm sorry. Instead, we come and we say, I really didn't mean to do that to you. I actually feel terrible, raising my voice in that way. We're going to be okay. Eh? So thank you we didn't even plan that. I should have planned that and said, I'm going to yell at you a little bit earlier, right? Next time, okay? Next time we'll plan that better. But folks, because there's no word for I'm sorry in our language and in our ways, it invites us to figure it out. It invites us to sit down at the coffee table, have a little coffee, maybe a treat, and work through it. Figure it out. Hey? That's what we do. In our language, there's also no word for you're welcome. There's no word for you're welcome. Hey? And the reason for that, once again, is culturally, we are a gifting people. We are going to gift. We are going to give to each other. We're going to be generous with each other. We're going to be kind. We're going to be gentle. That's innate in our DNA. That's what we want to do. So hence, we don't even have a word for you're welcome. There's a big word, miigwech, thank you. But we don't have to come back and say you're welcome because it's understood. It's part of our communal ways of life that we're going to be that way with each other, kind and gentle. And folks, as so many of you are aware, I wish these things were alive in our homes. Okay? I wish these things were still awakened in our homes. I do. But unfortunately, like so many of you in this room, if you are Anishinaabe or Ojibwe, even right there from Onigaming, Sabaskong, if you're under the age of 50, you likely don't speak your language. You likely don't speak the Ojibwe language. You may understand a lot, but you probably don't speak. You understand more than you speak. If you're under 40, you understand less. And if you're under 30, you probably don't speak much and understand very little. If you're under 20, you don't know nothing. And that's right there in my home. And that's most reservations. I'll say it that way. So when you have that kind of loss, right? Now we don't even know that we didn't have a word for I'm sorry or you're welcome, because even those teachings don't exist. Let's just say in that way. Huh? We're going to go on a journey today, folks. A journey. And this, again, this moniker is going to be our guide. It is going to be our guide. You'll also have many teachings, and you will all get this slide deck, okay? Put that up in your office, okay? If I'm a Native American and I walk into your offices, whether it's for housing assistance, whether it's, for paying the utility bill, if it's for any type of social services. I know many social workers here. My partner, by the way, Melody Stabner, she's the coordinator of Indian Education, West Fargo Schools. She's graduating this year with her social work degree from UND. Okay, 40-something years old. Okay, first generation high school graduate, first generation, of course, college grad at 40-something years old. Okay, social work degree. Okay, right there. Put this up. If I walked even close to your office and I saw this would already kind of give me a sensation, folks, that there is something that you do that resonates with the DNA of Native America. Right here. This thing, I would honestly say, is a generalized Native American teaching. Over 500 different tribal nations in America, they likely have this as part of their way now. Okay? Right here. This is the journey that I'm going to take you on today, folks. Right there. Medicine wheel teachings, we call it 4 quadrants. I added that one in the middle because that is the learning style of Native American people. And on the medicine wheel, we always start in the east. So what you're going to go through today, folks, is you're going to see some things today. So when I talk about learning, when I talk about teaching us things, show us. Show us what it looks like. Show it what it feels like. Hey? Give us the content. Give us the answers. Give us the info. Holy man, there's documentation galore that needs to be filled out. Hey? And I guarantee you, if you think of my partner, first generation high school graduate, you're going to hear and see some things here, folks, that tell you that only 50% of our children graduate high school. That is a national statistic. What the heck? 50% or so. Hey? What does that tell you about where our people are? Help us. Hey? We need to see the learning. Show us things. And then, of course, in that learning, right? In that learning part, folks, we need to feel it. Feel it. This is where those stories, this is where that kindness, that I'm going to work through this with you. Hey, we've got this. I'll tell you a little story about myself. And Melody, in her life, in my life, holy man, have we accessed every part, I bet you, of what is in here. Any law enforcement in here? No? That would be another part, right? The city of Fargo, I'm training, 1,000 or so employees coming up here in April, mostly law enforcement. A month ago, I was with Cass County Jail, right, in the same context. And they got the exact thing that you're all getting. Because what's good for a Native American is good for all. And as we work through this thing, feel it. Let me feel what this content is. Tell me some stories. Tell me some things that are going to, right, make me confident in myself so that I can actually start accepting these things that you're telling me about. Hey? Then we need to do something with it, right? Let us then work through the process with you. Let us try to own that knowledge, hey? Because at that point, once we go through this sequence, folks, then we only, what we say, begin to know it. That's when we begin to know it. And this thing obviously is a ever-flowing piece. It might skip a step or two, not necessarily perfect, but this right here is the indigenous learning style right here, folks. Okay? If you give me, right now today, even after presenting to you, if you give me a standardized test, multiple choice, I will likely fail. No question about it. I just helped my daughter just a year ago finish her driver's license permit, right? She got the pre-test, 40 questions. You needed 32 out of 40 correct in order to pass it. I took that thing 4 times. The best score that I got was a 30. Every answer for me looks right. I don't want anything to be wrong. You give me a true and false, that is torturous for me. I am gonna, they both look right to me. And I could tell you why they are, because I have a story about both of them. Folks, I'm telling you, this is part of the reason why, again, in schools, that Native American students are proficient only at about 30% in reading and math by 3rd grade. There's some of that happening, no question. Think about that. You have Native American people that are coming into your doorways, likely, right? 50% of their DNA graduating from high school, and likely only 30% proficient in reading and math by 3rd grade. Okay? You know what I learned in principal school? I learned that 48 of 50 states use 3rd grade reading scores as their rubric for how many beds they'll need each year. 48 of 50 states. 3rd grade reading scores. So now we know who the highest represented culture is in the prisons, the Native American. Okay? Likely still the smallest population, but likely the highest represented or so. Hey? Yeah, we'll say it, black and brown people, likely in your midst. Hey? When I say the brown, no question. Hey? Heavy Latino population. We've got a large East African, early American migration happening right here, right? Mostly East Grand Forks, but plenty here too. Hey? And I wonder how many of you know Assalamu Alaikum. Hey? Yeah, I wonder how many of you would understand and know Hola, ¿cómo estás? Mi nombre es Señor Blanco. Hey? ¿Cómo estás? Because there is some things in the DNA of a human, folks, that when we start connecting and we start relating, there is some magic that can happen, even in the midst of some ugly stuff. Okay? The things that you all know that come to your table, there's a human relational thing that can happen where we can bridge that. Okay? We can bridge that. There it is, right there. So you are getting here, folks, what you are basically getting exposed to is a cultural competency of sorts. You know, when we think of diversity, equity, and inclusion, you know, we can throw out all kinds of academia at you with that. And they're good. Those are good teachings. And ultimately, when you start connecting with the culture a little bit, you start hearing and feeling and relating with the things that are being said about a culture that might not be your own, that's where the real magic happens, folks. Because then you can act on that. Cultural competency is basically you all getting confident and building confidence with a culture that is other than your own. Hey? And by storytelling and inviting you with some things and some of the stories, you're already on that journey right now. I know. You know how I know? You are absolutely quiet and you are like zoned in on me, like I've just hypnotized you. Hey? You know why? Because you are saying, yes, I agree with that. What is good for a Native American is good for everyone. That's what cultural competency is, and that's what I'm going to do here today on this journey, only an hour and a half, okay? This journey that will go on, by the time you leave, I guarantee you, you're going to be able to apply some things immediately to your work. You will. You'll apply some things immediately to your work. You'll also get an email, the resource guide that I have as part of, you know, what I do, okay? Native American Best Practices Resource Guide. You'll have the slide deck, and you'll have a YouTube video, okay? A YouTube video, 1.5 minutes long, that'll help you. 1.5 minutes long, crazy. Crazy when we think about that. So you're on this journey right now. Right now, you are on this journey. Yeah. This is so much full of culture here today. Right here in this Eagles Hall. I'm not sure if all of you know, but the workers that are all here are all volunteers. Every one of them. Volunteers that help with this entirety. Very thankful for that. Teachings from Ricky. Anything that you get here today, I ask you to speak to the teaching. When we speak to the teaching, you've already heard some things, Indian time. Speak to the teaching. Speak to how that connected with you. And when you speak to the teaching, speak where you got the knowledge from. It's okay to name drop. Hey, I was in a training. The next time you're with that Native family, I was in a training with an Ojibwe guy. His name was Ricky White, and here's some things that he shared. You know what, folks? Them just hearing that you had this exposure is an invitation, a bridging thing. Because most of our people, when they see systems, all we see is this, and I'm sorry, you're all good people, and I don't trust you. I do not trust you worth nothing right now. That's what we're feeling when we're accessing your systems. You're all really good people. You're here. I get that. You just being here shows some things. And I will tell you straight up, you are not trusted. How do we build that, folks? Yeah, right here today. I was in a training for a whole day and then laugh at them and say, he joked about Indian time too. Hey, you know, it was incredible. The things that I heard and I learned about your culture, it opened my mind. Folks, I'm giving you an elevator speech right now. An elevator speech, right? The tallest building, right? You know, it's still probably only a 30-second elevator. If you're talking for 2 minutes, 2 minutes introducing all this, that's 2 minutes too long. Your elevator speech, very quick, snappy, clear, and concise. I was in a training with an Ojibwe guy, a Native American training, and he talked to us about best practices, and one of the things he talked about was connecting with you all. Understanding that there's so much that has happened, right? Let's build a relationship. Something like that, folks. The medicine wheel teachings that I just shared with you. And the one that I'm going to share with you right now. Smudging. So again, speaking to the teaching, where did you get the knowledge? Honor it. Honor the significance. Create structures for success. And you know, folks, yeah. Smudging. You see everything that's written on this piece of paper here. Talks about cleansing, refreshing, calming. Calming the things that we're going to see. I want to see good things. I want to see the good in you. Hey? I want to hear good things. I want to hear good words, good things being spoken. I want to speak good words for you, kind, gentle, respectful words to you. I also want you to know that I come with a good heart here today. Hey? Good, calming heart for all of you. Because in my mind, I need all of those things because now I'm ready to be calmed. Hey? And then the entire aura of where we are, the place to where we are. That's what our smudging does. Another ancient, and when I say ancient, ancestral way of life. And when we talk ancestry, Native Americans, what we feel when we say ancestry, it's that we are going to utilize the teachings from way back when today. That's what ancestry really means to us. And that's why we call it sacred. It's special. It is a special thing. So as I light just a little wee bit, just a little wee bit. That sage is a medicine that invites a calming. I've got students that I work with that take anxiety medication. And when they know they're going to meet with Ricky, by the way, that's what I go by with their kids. I'm Ricky. Not Mr. White. Not no letters at the end of my name. I'm Ricky. Just something that I feel strongly about. They tell me they don't take their medication when they know they're going to be with me. Because we start every session with the smudge. Every time. Schools, no matter where we are. And just like today, I'm speaking in this tone. I don't typically ask for permission. Because it's just a little wee bit and we can handle a little bit. I tell schools and principals, as a former superintendent myself, now in the consulting realm, I ain't gonna even harm these fire alarms. But I'll be honest, when I was superintendent of a beautiful school just up the road, Circle of Life Academy, we had 9 fire alarms one year due to smudging. So I had to tell the teachers, and the teachers that were lighting it like that were your typical white, non-native teachers. Helen Kennedy was responsible for 5 of them. Helen Kennedy, former principal, Bagley, I convinced her to come out of retirement and come and be my special ed director. And she was in this smaller little space. And we always say, when you smudge, just use a little wee bit. But every Monday, she was feeling it. And she had, of course, a high school clientele, right, that would come in after a weekend of probably a lot of unsafety, right? And would come in and would need this. So she would light it up and the fire alarm would go out. We'd all be out there and Helen would come out and she'd be waving. She's only about that high, right? Just waving, yeah, it was me. But you know what? What was good for a Native American was good for her and good for that class. And I always said to the staff, just think, as a school, that is what we do. Okay? We have to do 11 fire alarms anyway. I was proud to say that we had 9 due to smudging that year, right? Why not? Like, you can then not just brag, but say that we are actually doing these things. We are infusing these things. Can you imagine the next time you're with a Native client, okay? And you say, maybe let's go outside because our building isn't quite ready for this, hey? Right? Maybe let's go outside. I have some smudge, hey? I was in a training with a guy named Ricky White, and he taught me and he said to me, what is good for Native Americans is good for everyone, okay? And here's the teaching right there for your reference. This thing here is yours, by the way. If you're a Walmart shopper like me, I tell you what, I couldn't believe it. I'm walking down Walmart, down an aisle, just like this. I'm walking down the aisle, and I got to the end of this aisle, and I'm like, whoa! and I saw this sheet of paper right on the end of an aisle. $3.88 will get you this here, folks. They have everything at Walmart, don't they, man? Oh, you couldn't believe it. There it was. So it's right here. And there is one thing, though, that I will disagree with this sheet. One thing that's written on here, and that's the word prayer. Is there times where we get deep with our ways and our ways of life? Absolutely. We can pray sometimes with this. 9 out of 10 times, probably not. So I know many organizations, right? Separation of church and state, especially public schools, it's illegal, But I would say this is not religion, folks. These are ways of life. Every day I smudge. Okay? And when you hear from the kids and when you hear from all of you, isn't the way that I'm even explaining it to you a calming? Hey? It's a calming. It's mindfulness. We all do things. We need that cup of coffee in the morning. We need whatever it is that you do, folks. Because here's the other thing I need to tell you. The work that you do. This is why I'm honored to be in a place like this. The stress, the anxiety, the pressure, and the content of so much that you deal with every day. Hey? What are you doing to take care of yourself, your self-care? Hey? What is it? Is it a walk? I hear from so many staff, is it nature? Is it going out and about? Is it calling family? Is it having a dinner? Is it yoga? Is it meditation? Is it, church? Whatever those things are, folks, you need to mark them down here, top 3. Whatever those things are, hey? You need that. You need that. Not just to forget, not to release, but to get yourself to a place. Because here's the other thing that I tell schools, especially school law, when I've presented, and this has come under question. I say, okay, so there is a national phenomenon going on right now. It's called mental health. Okay? We hear and we see it all over the place. What are folks doing to address it? It's these kind of things, relationship building. And there's other practices, meditation. I see schools working with kids in circles, and they're meditating. After lunch, when they're ready to come back to build stamina. After recess, whatever have you. They get into a big brawl or a big argument, they're circling up in restorative practice. Let's just calm ourselves down. Hey? And I see schools using yoga. I see schools using these things. And by the way, folks, meditation and yoga, ancient Hindu religious activities. So you can't tell me that we're not using religious practices in schools, right? We are. We're doing it every day. Why do we do it? Because it's good for kids. Hey? It's good for kids. Yes, we're not, right? And you're not here today going to be a born-again Indian having all of this, by the way, folks. You're not going to be a born-again Indian. I like to say that too, right? And we're not going to be born-again Hindus, but we're using ways of life and cultural practices that we know are good. So whatever it is that is good for all of you in that, because you know what? Here's the reality. You are required to be at 100%, if not more, every time somebody that's in trauma or somebody that is in need comes to your door. And yet you yourself might be going through something. You yourself might have something going on even in your own life, and now you got to deal with this situation. How and what do you do to get yourself to a place? I'll invite you to smudging. Smudging is a good way of life. And again, I wish many of our people understood just the basic and the essence of what I just explained to you. That too might not be there. That too might not be there. But there it is for you. And look at where we are. We're already 30 minutes in. And we're only beginning this journey, folks. We're only beginning this journey. This is it's a 2 or 3 pager, but this is the best practice framework and resource guide that I told you about. This is another thing, right? You know, a lot of times we can't remember everything in our heads. Lord knows, man, I forget a lot of things that just happened yesterday, you know? So we need a guide. We need something, again, that's going to remind us of stuff. So this is something that will come to you in a PDF, okay? I also teach a course. I offer a course through NDSU. It's offered monthly. This content, Native American content, is, I'll say it this way, unfortunately not offered very well out there. And when I say very well, there's not much out there. This is part of the problem that we see in so many organizations, so many K-12 and post-secondary, is most folks get very little on Native American, and they get even less once they go to college. They might need to take a 6-credit cultural competence course or something like that, world cultures course, and there you go, you know. So this course has kind of caught on fire. I reached 1,200 students or 1,200 educators and folks that are in your realm who sign up and take the course. It's offered every month. Again, this is a year old, but I got, I think, a dozen or so folks in the March course right now. So that's for you as well. This is our guide here today. There'll be some things, again, this is a guide and a good guide. And again, folks, as we think of the medicine wheel, it really does organize our ways of life. The medicine wheel, the number 4 is big. So you saw that first one, the 4, right? Parts of learning: seeing, feeling, doing, and then knowing. We also use the 4 sacred medicines. Tobacco starts us in the east. The sage for that emotional realm of life. Cedar for that physical, the only one that we ingest. And then the mental, that 60 and older realm. You see the 4 physiological parts of balancing as well, that spiritual way of life, emotional, physical, mental. We even have a little Erik Erikson, and I've got a medicine wheel on that too, where it goes through, again, those stages of life, the 4 stages of life, from infant to that young adult, teenage, to then an adult, and then the elder. So again, folks, medicine wheel teachings, okay? Ancient, thousands of years old, right there, sitting on our wigwams. A lot of it in our art. And that too, I could only tell you how good I would feel walking into your building, walking into your office, if I saw something like that hanging. And then if you noticed them looking at that, oh, hey, I was in a training, Native American training, with the guy. He yelled at me in teaching. Hey, you know, we talked about stuff, and I had that exposure. Hey, that again is not saying I don't know everything. He even said that. He talked about, you know, we don't know everything. We don't own any of this. It's meant to be shared. That's why I say, folks, everything here is yours. Everything here that you'll see today is yours. It's yours. Use it. Hey, it's yours. Folks, welcome and introduction. Creating belonging. Belonging is the greatest, best practice. Creating belonging. When we feel like we belong, we're comfortable. There is some recognition. There's some resemblance of, right? Noticing. There's all those power words that create action, is all in belonging. Another picture for you. Hey? Superintendent of Fargo Public Schools, East Indian guy. His name is Rupak Gandhi. Last summer, he has a network, about 40 or so students, hey? A mixture of black, white, Native American, and Latino. And this is the big picture goal for Fargo Public Schools. You know, we're all thieves in the end, you know, and we look at practices and wanting to get knowledge, you know, we call it best practices. Sharing best practices is the politically correct term, but, you know, I don't mind sharing this with him. Belonging, folks, we start in the East, you feel like you're respected, you know. You're going to have families that probably have done some pretty rotten things, and they should still feel respected if they're accessing your services. How do you get to that point to where you build that? Hey, building that respect for each other. It goes both ways. Hey, goes both ways. You feel supported, you feel accepted, and you feel included. That is what we call healthy belonging, folks. Rupak Gandhi asked that group of students and said, do you feel all of these in Fargo schools? And he announced this last August in his inaugural speech to all staff. So 3,000 or so Fargo employees were listening to this. And you know what he said? When I asked them to stand if they feel this, only the non-native students stood. All the black and brown kids sat. And he said this to all staff. Hey? Sounds like we got some work to do. Hey? Why is that the case? Why do students, families, why don't they feel respected? Why don't they feel supported? Why don't they feel accepted? And why don't they feel included? What is that? Is that just pure R-word, racism, racial thing? Or is there some things that maybe happened? Hey? Yeah. That's something that there is no right or wrong or quick answers to. But I'll tell you, he was brave enough to stand there and tell his entire staff. And so this has become the Fargo model, that we are really going to focus on how we create belonging here. You have folks that are coming to you for housing assistance. They're coming to you, social services. They're coming to you for other familial struggles, problems, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, whatever have you. They're coming to you likely at their most weakest point, most vulnerable point, hey? And their most painful point at all levels. How do we still create this? It's right up here, folks, in you and in here. And how you are then going to invite that in, hey? How you're going to invite that all in. Whew, boy. What do you say? Let's start talking, hey? So in traditional introduction, via the Ojibwe or Anishinaabe, right? Those are the two primary ways you can describe my people, hey? Ojibwe or Anishinaabe. Chippewa, you know, we even have our own people that are okay with Chippewa. That's an Indian agent butchering our language, you know. Imagine 200 years ago when orthography folks wrote in English and Ojibwe, Chippewa, Chippewa. Okay, there we go. That's Indian agent made up word. Ojibwe, Anishinaabe, right? That's the proper term. So here's a language for you. When we introduce ourselves, we start with Bonjour. Everyone, Bonjour. And then we would go on and tell you literally a story. This is what I'm saying. If you understood the language and I introduced myself this way, Bonjour, Niga nana kutendigo. Niga nana kutendigo. Ricky White, Deja Shaganashi, Jenekaz. Bijou, Bijou, Nindo Tem. Not Komego Aning, Whitefish Bay First Nation, Nindo Njaba. Fargo, Inda, Miigwech, Gigo Abmin, Ingo Abmin, Minoa, Miigwech. You see, folks, in this room, hey, everywhere I go, Pujo, Niga Nana Kutendigo, Pijo and do them, Not Comigo Aning, Anishinaabe. Hapachini Miigwechi Wandam, Wanogum. Kipiwi Jamigo on, Chigagi Gitoan. Meet no Anishinaabe, Chichigawanin. Kigi no Chikenda Mig. Meet no Aga Nishigan. Kijano Kito Eginoa. The Minandan Ganin and Kigit Noan. Gikandan, we go gang in the gay way, ma. Kinoa Magan and Mutabig in the cities of Sim Wagan Shinabean. Gikandan. Me woman a kick it on. How? Me watch. Any of you understand? Did any of you understand? Maybe a word or two, because I preluded some things, right? But after I introduced myself, that entire dialogue, you probably didn't even know, right? Think about that for a second. Right here in Crookston, right here in this Eagles Community Hall, that language is the original language right here on this land. Where you go home to, that is likely the original language of this land. Thousands of years old. Hey? But yet, nobody speaks. Even White Earth, Red Lake, hey? Panema, right? Boyce Fort, all of our reses, 7, right? Ojibwe, Anishinaabe reses north of 94. We could probably count Panema and Red Lake, a lot more speakers there, but there's also more elders there, 65 and up. They speak pretty good. But we could probably count on our hands and toes how many could actually understand what I just said and maybe speak it. Yet this is the original land of where that language is spoke. This language that I'm speaking now is a foreign language here. Hey? It is. You know what's crazy? The language I'm speaking right now is only about 600 years old. The way that we all speak this language, this beautiful, powerful language that I'm speaking, is only about 600 years old. Anishinaabe, Chumash, thousands of years old, hey? And near extinction right here today. So the families that you are receiving likely know, just like all of us and me, very little. And the likelihood that they have language, probably not. Probably not. Because you know what's crazy? Is me just going through this introduction, this greeting, hello, Niga Nanakut Ndigu. I got that name. You would know right away that I have my Indian name, my spirit name, and that name came in ceremony. It came in ceremony where my parents offered tobacco to a knowledgeable person that conducts that ceremony, Windao Sawin. And that when that ceremony happened, and back home it happens right when the sun rises, that's when they start. And everyone is there. This would be all of you coming to attend somebody's Indian naming ceremony back in the day. And it sort of happens a little bit here and there today, but not much. Most of the families you'll receive probably did not have this. Hey? Can you imagine that ceremony? Beautiful ceremony. There's the baby and the person in front. Everybody, relatives, friends, cousins, whoever, you're there to witness. And you hear that Indian name for the first time. Niga Nanakut. Loosely translated, front of the cloud or leader. And then everyone in there, we would literally say and chant, Nizagi Niga Nanakut. I love and I care about that baby or that person now, their spirit. I'm connecting with them. And we all do that. And the person talking and orating talks about familial structures, talks about our ways of life, how we love and we care for each other no matter what. We're going to do whatever we can, help each other out. All of those things, they're talked about there. Can you imagine how many babies were born and how many times this thing would happen? It would happen weekly. It would happen a lot. Hey, communal way of life. Unfortunately, when I go into schools and I talk in audiences like this, if you were all Native and I asked the group, how many of you have your Indian name? 3 or 4 might raise their hand in a room like this. So you can see that teaching is almost gone. Right? So just hearing that, you know that I went through that in my time. And then I would say, yeah, my English name. Then I would tell you my clan, the Lynx clan. Right? Typically we had 7 clans, hence Thief River Falls, 7 Clans Casino, Red Lake, 7 Clans Casino, named after our clan system, which is our governmental structure, our familial structure, our community structure. It guided all of that. Your role and responsibility as a Lynx clanner, right? As a Bear clan, an Eagle clan, a Fish clan, or the Hoof clan, all of those had responsibilities and roles towards the community and how we were going to take care of each other. Love and care, treat each other good, kindness, gentle, sharing, generosity, and being present with each other. All of those things were alive. And today, you would again say, most do not know. Another thing that has been dwindled away. So just right there, an introduction. Then, of course, I appreciate many organizations today with a land acknowledgement statement. I appreciate, you hear a lot of them, we're gathered on the traditional lands of the so-and-so and we're honored and thankful and so forth, right? Fantastic. But we do it every time we introduce. And we do it because it is the land that gave us everything. And you see a lot of that happening with Native people. We go off to college or we go places and we struggle because there is some attraction happening with that land. There's something about home. There's something there that's innate and in the DNA. We just can't get over it. Then of course we say our see you laters. Another thing, folks, there's no word for goodbye in Ojibwe. No word for goodbye. Any of our indigenous languages. No word for I'm sorry, no word for you're welcome, and there is no word for goodbye. Instead, we say see you later. We say see you later. So, here we are. Whew. Your turn. You're all going to be able to introduce yourselves today in Ojibwe language. And that 1.5 minute YouTube video that I told you about that you're going to get is me on YouTube. So you need to listen to it on your way to work, you know, you want a little refresher, you got that Native family coming in, even if they're not Ojibwe. Use that language. I was in a training and I was learning how to introduce myself. I'm still learning. So I might not speak it very fluently, but I'm going to give it a try. I know in Ojibwe we say bonjour. Everyone, bonjour. That's hello. Hey? And then the next one, you'll insert your name. So whatever your name is. So for me, I would say Ricky Nindigenikaz. Here's the phrase. I'm going to say it twice and then we'll do a choral response. Ricky Nindigenikaz. Everyone, Nindigenikaz. 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 Bonjour, Ricky Nindigenikaz. Introduce yourselves at your table. People that are across from you, people that are there, I'm going to leave it there. Bonjour. Bonjour, Ricky Nindigenikaz. Bonjour. Bonjour. Okay, back to me in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I always have a call sign, and again, I just taught it to you, so counting down from 5. Big audiences. So, bonjour, Ricky Nindigenikaz. Nicole. Did you guys hear her? Yep. Bonjour, Ricky Nindigenikaz.
Bonjour, Linda Indigenikaz.
Oh, round of applause. Nicole. Hey? And? Nicole? Linda Indigenikaz. Hey? Folks, that little greeting goes a long way. Hey? I started out as a teacher, St. Paul Public Schools, middle school, 1997. My first class was literally about this size, right? That year at Battle Creek Middle School, East St. Paul, we were supposed to have 800 students. 1,300 kids landed in that school. My first class, I'm an Ojibwe language teacher, an American Indian art and music teacher, and I'm in the auditorium, and I had literally 56 students in my class. So I'm thinking, oh, hey, 25 years old, I'm going to give them all the content, right? It's all about content. That's where they're going to listen to me. They're going to listen to me because of content. Whew, man, was it a ruckus. I was failing 2 weeks. I almost wanted to turn things in. And that is why most folks wash out of social services and education, because we think it's all about the content. Your training is fantastic. Those degrees, all of that studying, that academia is fantastic. And what will allow you to survive is your relational abilities, the person. So what I ended up doing, I had a pretty wide mix. I had black, I had brown, I had East Asian, because we also in St. Paul got just a massive influx of Hmong people, like 15,000 immigrants straight from the Thailand camp. Hmong people with literally the backpacks on their back, and these kids walking in, they never looked from their toes. So after 2 weeks, I knew what I needed to do. And I started with the Latino. As my first Latino guy walked in, hey, hola, ¿cómo estás? Mi nombre es Señor Blanco. Man, that guy just looked at me, and I know I'm still learning, right? And then, of course, when the East African Somali came in, I dug deep and talked, and I learned what Assalamu alaikum is. Coming in peace in a good, loving, caring way. Huh? And then the response I got. And then the biggest challenge was those refugees who literally were coming from that war-torn place. Hey, those Hmong students, young girls, barely looked up from their toes. And I started with Niao Zhang, Gulumbe, Mr. White, because I was forced to be Mr. White back then. Hey, Kalumbe Huli Kya, hey, Ka J, Kun J. Hello, my name is Mr. White. What is your name? You're very smart. I'm very smart too. Hey, you should have seen the smiles on those young Hmong students. And they were able to learn from me. And we learned together at that point. And then I started talking about how, you're here to learn Ojibwe and something that you probably didn't sign up for, but we're going to do this together in a respectful way. I didn't post up any rules. We're just going to treat each other well. Just like I'm honoring your cultures, trying to learn a little more about you. That's what we'll do here this year. That's the best we can do, and hopefully you'll get a few things out of it as well. And that's where we went. Oh, glorious time. Glorious time. And of course, you got to everybody wonders when you learn that new language, how do you say the swear words? How do you do all of those, right? They're all over that. There's no swear words in Ojibwe. I always say Ojibwe language was not formed from English. This one's way younger than Ojibwe. We've been around a long time. Same with French. The French people always say, oh, you stole our word for hello. Bonjour, bonjour. Anishinaabe is older than French. I'm sorry, La Francais. Eh? But we're a little older than that. Eh? You borrowed ours, if anything. Eh? Bonjour. You got to mix it up a little bit. And I remember with those Hmong kids, they started to get a little squirrely. So I had to reel them back in. And so I said this one to them. Kucha pao chupe. Oh my God, they started laughing and laughing and laughing, and I looked, and of course, you know what it means? I farted and it stinks really bad. Hey, you gotta mix it in and be a little weird sometimes, right? A little humor. Humor works for everyone, hey? And you all did it yourselves, so many of you as you looked at this. So it's nice to have the reference, right? Remember, we got to see it, because can you imagine if I did this and then asked you to speak? Whew. Now we've just erased your guide. Now the nerves come in, right? Show us the answers. Put it up on your wall if you need a reminder, folks. Have it there. Oh, now I did it, right? So the next one, you're going to share where you're from. So the first two, Buju, Rikin, and Dishnikaz. And right now I would say, at this point, I could say this, Fargo, Nindun Jiba. I'll say it twice and have you respond. Nindun Jiba, Nindun Jiba, Nindun Jiba, Nindun Jiba. I like to sing this one a little bit. You ready? Nindun Jiba, Nindun Jiba, Nindun Jiba, Nindun Jiba, Hawimbowe, Hawimbowe, Nindun Jiba, Nindun Jiba, Nindun Jiba. So 3 phrases for you now. We're scaffold learning. Buju, Rikin and Dishnikaz, Fargo, Nindun Jiba. I'm surprised how many of you have already taken a picture of it. Hey? Zoom it in, take a picture, do what you need to. Speak Anishinaabe Amug with your partners. That means speak, introduce yourself, and share where you're from to your partners. Do it. Buju, Riki, Ndishnikaz, Fargo, Ndun Jiba, Ngoab Min Minoa, Miigwech. Buju. Buju, Ricky, Didishnikaz. Fargo, Nindun Jaba. Okay, back in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So again, inviting you, any of these slides, they're yours. Take pictures of them, screenshot them when you get the slide deck.
Are you saying Indigenous or do you put an N in the
Love it. Orthography is a brand new thing. We've only started writing our language down in the last 30 years. So some dialects you'll hear the Nindigenikas. Others you'll hear it, it's a little silent, but it's there. Indigenikas. Okay? If you're Dakota in Dakota land, over that way, I don't know if any of you are over in that way, you hear of this town called Minnewakan. Minnewakan. Minnewakan is what Dakota people would pronounce it. Again, when we anglicize and we write them down, holy man, just like Chippewa, just like Minnesota, Minnewašota, or Minneašota, Dakota for cloudy like. We're butchering that beautiful Dakota name every time we pronounce Minnesota. Michigan, Michigan, oh. Michigaming, Michigaming, eh? Big water area. But of course, in English, we'll butcher it up, and then pronounce it because that's how we speak it, right? So yes, you'll hear the N sometimes, but it's also pretty silent. Indigenikas, Indigenikas, Nindigenikas, you can say it both ways. Here's the thing, as long as, and you could rap it too, I'm not kidding, holy man, this language is tough. By the way, Guinness Book of World Records has this ranked as one of the hardest, #1 language in the Guinness Book, as the hardest language to comprehend and learn. Ojibwe. Here's the reason why. It is the opposite of this language that I'm speaking right now. English is all about the noun, person, place, or thing, right? You need that in there. Ojibwe is the exact opposite. It's all about the adjectives, the verbs, descriptions. And we describe things deeply. So like I said, no swear words, but man, could I talk about some funny things about you. Oh my goodness, could go pretty deep too. And it's funny, it is such a funny and humorous descriptive language. Again, that's part of that invitation to conversation, Another thing that unfortunately, with our people not speaking, we've kind of lost. So it's a double-edged sword, folks, with some of this. You will likely have families that'll come to you, don't talk to me about that native stuff. Deeper level, and we'll get to that. I'll beg to say, though, that many of them will at least appreciate your elevator speech that you were involved in a training, a Native American training, Talked about some things, some cultural things, and how much you respected and honored and how much sense it made to you. We can at least have decency and go there. As far as introducing yourself, no matter what tribal nation, they might not be Dakota or Ojibwe. They might be, in Fargo alone, over 40 different tribal nations in Fargo alone. So you know what a lot of people ask me? And they say this a lot. What do we call you guys? Indian? I'd say this, leave the Indian calling to the native people, because if you don't know where the word Indian came from, it's that guy that was lost 500 years ago, we're out there in the ocean, some guy, real good navigator, was over there trying to find the riches of India, supposed to go around the Horn of Africa and go to India for all those, spices and resources, but he ended up landing on the East Coast. This guy's name was Columbus, 500 years ago, he landed there. And of course, he thought he was in India. So when the native peoples came out, he wrote right in his journals, Indians. And so it stuck with us. I often say, man, thank goodness he wasn't looking for Tasmania. We'd be a bunch of Tasmanians. Literally, we would. Think about it, man, how crazy that is. We'd be a bunch of Tasmanians now. Whew, little devil, but it's a crazy thought. But that's exactly what it was. So leave the Indian calling to the natives, they might get a little touchy with it. Native American is okay. Indigenous people is okay. American Indian is also okay. They're okay. If you truly want to call us by our true name, though, find out what tribal nation we are. And more importantly, the language that that tribal nation speaks. So for me, you calling me Anishinaabe or Ojibwe, whew, that's that deeper level thinking, folks. Dakota, call them Dakota. Hey? Yeah. It's a deeper term and a more knowledgeable term, I would say. Your competency and cultural intelligence is way deeper doing that. But here's where we go. Buju, Riki, Nindijinikas, Fargo, Nindunjiba. Buju, Riki, Nindijinikas, Fargo, Nindunjiba.
Boju, Amanda, Indijinikas, Fisher, Indunjaba.
Give it up for Amanda, hey? See how did it feel, right? You know, like, whoo, you went through all that circle, didn't you? You know, you saw it, you felt it, and you really felt it there, but you did it, right? You did it. That's where you begin to know. Folks, when these doors hit you in the butt when you leave, if you don't ever use any of this stuff again, you will lose it, hey? So use it or lose it, folks. And that's why, again, you'll get that little video, hey, little video, yeah, my big round head, I got to go over here. The cameraman said I got to stay over here. But I told him, hey, I don't have a 4 head anymore. I got more of a 9 head. So, you know, so you'll be able to see me in that YouTube video. And I go through each of these phrases on that YouTube video, 1.5 minutes, right? You need more practice? Click that in, throw it in your earbud, whatever have you. And then we say things like, Ingawabamin, Minoa. We'll use the Gigawabamin. That's see you again soon. So Gigawabamin, everyone. Gigawabamin. Gigawabamin. Gunigugu. Just kidding. I know. Buniguniganiga, right? You know. Dakota people always tease us, you know. They're like, oh, man, you Buniguniganigas. Oh, my goodness. Lots of phrases. But here's the deal, folks. If you need to wrap it. Gigawabamin. If you're starting, Gigawabamin. If you got to wrap it, you know. Like, my palms are sweaty. Knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on my sweater already. Mom, spaghetti. I'm nervous, but on the surface I look calm and ready. Right? Who is it? Eminem, baby, right? You know, if you got to wrap it every now and again, as long as you say all the syllables, anyone that is Anishinaabe that can speak and understand a little bit will still understand you. And where are the Anishinaabe people? North of 94 here in Minnesota. Still kind of north of 94 as you go right into North Dakota. There's still a Dakota tribe there, Spirit Lake, right? Dakota. But Turtle Mountain, Chippewa. Eh? My partner, she's from Turtle Mountain. We joke about that, Chippewa, you know. And you go even further into Montana, Rocky Boy, Montana, Chippewa. And then if you went the other direction and came back this way, again, from Fargo to Minneapolis, north of 94, Ojibwe. You go from Minneapolis to Chicago, north of 94 and 90 in Wisconsin, mostly another 7 Ojibwe tribal nations. You go around Chicago to Detroit, Upper Peninsula, Michigan, pretty much all Anishinaabe tribal nations, reservations located there. So if you spoke this language and you were up in that neck of the woods and you introduce yourself this way, and even if you wrapped it, Buju, Riki, Nindijinikas, Fargo, Nindunjiba, Gigawabamin, Miigwech, you would still be understood. Your fluency is going to come in how you use it, right? In how you use it. So that, folks, is like tomorrow. You could literally, if you practice this and even just started maybe with an introduction, you know, but if you did say that big one at the end, Gigawabamin, we'll see you later. Whew, man, most of our people know those words, right? Sometimes for a greeting, depending on where you are, they'll say anin. Anin is another way, same thing. It's hello, it goes a little deeper though. How are you doing? You know, how are you feeling? So it goes a little deeper, that anin. Some people might start with that, okay? There you have it, folks. Unfortunately, yeah. Whew. Let's get real. Hey? Yeah. 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 In the state of Minnesota, folks, since 2010, in the state of Minnesota, they've kept information and data. And since 2010, 27 to 54 Native American women and girls go missing a month. Every month. 27 to 54. So much so that there is now an office in the state capitol titled Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women. In our state capitol. 27 to 54. Why? And why don't we hear that all over the news? You know, I felt terrible about this young woman, young, non-native white woman out of Winona, 28 years old, this last summer that went missing, and she was all over national news. Hundreds of folks out there looking. Hey? Saw it every day. 27 to 54 Native American women missing and murdered. A lot of women in this room. If you are Native, 1 in 4 of you will experience sexual and physical violence in your life. 1 in 4 of you. 17-year-old daughter that I have. Okay? Why? Why is murder and suicide the number one killer of Native people in between the ages of 10 and 34, 35? Why? Why, folks? Why are they the highest represented, smallest culture, but yet you see them most every day or every week in social services? Why are we the highest represented in prisons? Hey? Why? Why is it that only 50% of our children are graduating? And why right here in the state of Minnesota and North Dakota is 50%, hey, of children in foster care Native? Hey? Why? Why is this a reality? Hey? Because, you know, I have a lot of good friends, non-Native friends, who they just simply say to me, Rick, like, what in the heck is wrong with you people? Like, why can't you go get a job? McDonald's is paying $17 an hour. Get off your butts. Go get a job. This is America. What is wrong with you people? What is wrong? Hey? What is wrong? Why this? Hey? Yeah. State of North Dakota, 1,380 children in foster care. Hey? 980 of them are Native. Hey? Native people have the highest disparities in health, education, of course, the prison system, and so forth. Why? Why? Whew. Want to ask yourselves, what does your door look like? That's the theme right now. What does your door look like, folks? Because I'm going to invite you and I'm going to invite myself into your door. Okay? This is Robbie Adamson's story. My Robbie Adamson story. And you see, folks, this story begins December 24th, 1983. Ricky White was 12 years old. Growing up on Whitefish Bay First Nation. No electricity in my home, no running water. That was everybody. Hey? And of course, December 24th, we celebrated just like all of you. You know what it is. It's Christmas Eve, right? Next day is the greatest day. We're opening up presents, family, love, everything. Well, that night, folks, I was awakened at 2 o'clock in the morning to a drunken dad, probably coming back from the bar again. 2 o'clock in the morning. And folks, that wood stove in the middle, as I started and I heard this ruckus like you wouldn't believe. I heard this ruckus and I popped up, and on the other side of our stove that heated our house, and that's what we cooked on, I could see my twin sisters holding back my dad, big guy like me, holding him back. And there's my older brother Warren holding him back as well. And as he just threw them aside and pressed on, I could see where he was getting to. And there's my mom on the other side. And the last thing that I remember when I looked and I noticed was my mom doing this. She took off her glasses. Knowing, right? Like it was routine, like this was something that was normal in our home. And folks, I won't go into detail, things that you already likely have exposure to, that type of violence. But it was something that a 12-year-old, it was like right now, that's why I smudged. I know that I'm going to be telling this. And to any of you that are in here, seeing those statistics, if any of you have been exposed or have experienced any of those, I empathize and I send my own strength your way. And again, whatever you need to do to help yourself in those kind of states, whether it's that little shared sage that I lit, I encourage you in that. And I'll be honest, folks, we didn't have Christmas that year. We did not have Christmas. And I didn't see Dad much anymore. And when you notice a lot of our Native American homes, the dads are pretty much almost non-existent a lot of times. You know, I hate to say it, 8 out of 10 that come your way, you're likely not dealing with Dad. You might not even be dealing with Mom. Might be grandma or great-grandma or a relative. And that's where our families have basically been deterred to. Some things that have happened. And I didn't see Dad much. And as that new year came, right, as 1984 hit, those next few months, I didn't see Dad much in the house. My brother ended up moving with Grandma and Grandpa. My sisters kind of shacked in with aunts and uncles. A lot of couch surfing. And at the end of that school year, it was decided that I was going to move with my mom to the local town of Kenora. You see, I'm from Whitefish Bay, in the middle of Lake of the Woods on the Canadian side. Lake of the Woods still edges into, War Road and all those, Baudette and so forth, right? On the Canadian side. And Kenora was 60 miles away or so, north, on the tip of Lake of the Woods. And I remember when we landed there, we didn't just move to Kenora, we moved into bush, about 16 miles in the bush on this little trucking road, little house, way smaller than this, And I remember as a 13-year-old now, because it's June of 84, I'm now 13. And I remember me being a very angry young man, young boy, very angry. And most of that anger was directed at one person, my mom. What did you do to Dad to make him do that to you? Why did you take me away from all my family, my friends? Why are we all here, right? And why? Why is this all happening? Just totally angry with her. And that was what our conversations were like in our home, if any. It was me yelling, screaming, shouting, swearing, That's the state that I was in. And I remember one glorious late June day, she asked me to come outside. And as we got outside, there was this brand new bike. I have no clue where we got the money from. Maybe somebody like you were there to help us get a new bike for me. And I'm like, I think she was trying to bribe me a little bit. And then she bought me my first piece of technology, a Sony Walkman. A Sony Walkman with one cassette tape. And I can imagine, my mom has never bought another cassette tape. 81 years old, she still lives by herself up there in the bush. Probably never bought another cassette tape. It was Cyndi Lauper. The artist of the year, probably right there by the Sony Walkman. Cyndi Lauper. I think she had pink hair then. She's got blue hair now. Girls just want to have fun, right? All those things, right? Time after time. Oh my gosh, great thing. Listen to it for hours. and barely talked. And I remember one summer day, I decided, Daganamacha, I'm going to run away. I'm going to take off. And I remember taking off on my bike. And I was riding away on my bike, looking back at my house. I could see my mom in this little picture window. I'll go this way. Little picture window as I'm riding away. And on her face showed everything. Still not healed from the 6 months prior. The bruises were still there. It's almost like when I FaceTime her today, I can still see that Christmas Eve, which probably was just one of many that really happened. But as I was riding away, I remember basically doing this. Because I'm 13, I know it all, right? I know it all. And I'm taking off. And folks, I remember riding my bike on that dirt road. I met many semis, probably a dozen or so. And I remember at least half of them thinking, I'm going to turn my bike into the next one. I'm going to turn my bike into the next one. You know? I don't know what came over me, but I figured, well, I'm going to go check out this town, though. I'm going to check out this town. And I rode my bike around this town of Kenora. And I couldn't have been further disposed. Nobody waved at me. Nobody smiled at me. You know, here's this little, Anishinaabe boy, braids, baseball cap, and nobody acknowledged me for nothing. And most of the native people I saw were kind of busy and were kind of disposed, and I saw many in the streets as well. Hey? And I'm thinking, I got to get the heck out of here. I got to go. And I was almost ready to make that decision. And then all of a sudden I saw up on the hill, a baseball field. I could see a baseball floating up in the air. So as a 13-year-old, I'm thinking, right? I'm going to check this out. So I rode my little car, that's what we call a bike, rode it up the hill. And as I got to this baseball field, there were 5 boys playing ball. They all looked to be about my age, right? And I figured, well, I'm going to park my bike up here. And right behind, that fence, that right baseball field there. And there's one guy, he's behind the plate. He's got the ball like that, and he cracks the ball, and he kind of looks back at me. And we're just sort of eyeballing. I'm loitering, very close, like that, and gets back there, and he cracks the ball again. This time, that guy walked all the way around, and he came up to me. And he says, hey, we're short some players. You want to play ball? And I could speak English, folks. Don't get me wrong. I spoke English fine. And I'm like, yeah, right? And he reaches out his hand and he says, my name is Robbie Adamson. He goes, that's Troy Carlson, that's Ryan Raynard, that's Kyle Ferguson, and that's Chad Walston. Come out and play ball. Folks, I had a glorious day playing ball with these guys. They teased me a little bit about the hair. They're like, what's up with the hair? I'm like, it's a native thing. Sacred. Hair is sacred. Had to explain more later. People will get there today. But we played ball all day. All of a sudden, 4:30 in the afternoon hits. We're done. We got to go home and have dinner with our families. That's what we do every day in the summer. We're going and having dinner with our families. I'm thinking, you guys are nuts. Nope. We got to go home and have dinner. I'm like, oh, all right. I was just about ready to take off. Robbie says, hold on, Ricky. I want to show you where I live, though. Okay? Come, follow me. We rode our bikes down the hill, lakeside there, Kenora. Pull up to this house. It's a 2-story house. I'm like, holy man, you must be rich. Back on the res, there is no double-story, 2-story houses, right? And I'm thinking, man, you must be rich. He said, I ain't rich. My dad's a cop. My mom works at the clothing store, McTaggart's, But he said, Ricky, come pick me up here tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. We're going to do it all over again. It's supposed to be nice. I'm like, all right, I will. Rode my bike home. 16 miles, folks. Riding my bike home. Cyndi Lauper blared in my ears, right? And as I get home, right there in that little picture window off the kitchen, there's my mom, like she had never left. Same emotional wreck. Folks, we had no cell phones. We had no Twitter, no Instagram, no Facebook. She had no clue where her son was for 8 hours. She saw me the way I was. And I remember what Grandma said to me. Ricky, you want to make that connection. You want to lift somebody. You just give them this. Okay? And I gave her that. It was like a shower, a relief that came over her. Just with that simple smile. Okay? It's like everything. No clue where I was. And when I came in, first thing I said to her, I met some buddies. I met some buddies, and we talked a lot about that. It was great. We were finally having something called hope. It felt like a different aura in our home, just with that connection that I had made. Hey? Again, folks, what does your door look like? Hey? Next morning, where's Ricky? 7 in the morning. Where am I? I'm already at Robbie's house. Imagine this is a big tree across the street in the bush. And I'm looking around, looking at his house. Lights are all off, right? You know, I'm looking. Next thing you know, the lights turn on, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe now's the time. So I rode my little car. Over the road, right? And I parked it upside his house. And he had kind of a steps and a deck that went to his front door. I walked up the stairs, got to his front door, and I walked right into his house. And oh my gosh, there's Linda in the kitchen in her pink robe and a towel around her head, looking at this guy, right? You know, little guy. But what did Grandma say to me? What's Ricky doing? Hey, I'm here, right? Didn't say a word. She didn't say anything to me, but she's like, I could tell, who in the heck is this boy that just walked into my house? Next thing you know, when that happened, out walks big Sergeant Bob Adamson, full uniform, sits at the head of the table, and he's like this, I didn't do this, but he's looking at me. I swear he was probably saying, who in the hell are you, boy, kind of thing, right? You know, next thing when that happened, out comes Sister Corrine, younger brother Ryan, and then finally Robbie. And I could hear them talking, and he's like, yeah, that's my buddy Ricky, you know, we're going to play ball, blah, 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 blah. We head out and play ball. Robbie stops me. And he says, hey, Rick, you got to knock before you come in. You got to knock before you... I had no clue. Back on the res at that time, if you even had a door, if you had a doorknob, we had blankets a lot of times over our doors. But we didn't knock. Everyone's home was open to you. You knew everybody. Hey, we didn't have this thing, so I had no clue about knocking. I had no clue about this hidden norm, this expectation of me. No clue. No clue, folks. Hey, what does your door look like? Huh? Because I'll tell you this, we went and played ball that day. It was glorious. And at the end of the day, again, 4:30, the guys say to me, Rick, we're done. We all got to go home and have dinner with our families. I'm thinking, you guys are nuts. It's beautiful. Let's keep going. Nope. We got to go home and have dinner with our families. I'm like, oh, man, okay. Robbie says to me, though, tomorrow morning, though, Rick, it's supposed to be beautiful again. Come get me. I'm like, all right, will do. So I ride my bike home again, folks. 16 miles. Cyndi Lauper. It's beautiful. I get home. There's Mama waiting for me in that window. And this time, I am like this. I am like, holy man, you know, just I was laughing in my bike. Folks, the aura of what was going on in our home, I could tell the next layer of that H word, that hope, was there was some healing happening. And she told me yes, because I told her, man, yeah, there was some things, you know, I did this, and like, yeah, there's some things that you're going to have to learn about your new world. There's some things that you're going to have to learn and know about your new world, eh? But we'll do it together. We'll do it together. We'll figure it out, eh? Just keep being kind, keep being nice. We'll figure it out, eh? We'll get some help even if we need it, eh? No problem. Next morning, where's Ricky? He's again, 7 in the morning. 7 in the morning, I'm outside Robbie's house, right? You know, right there behind this tree, waiting for the lights to come on. They came on. I'm waiting, and I figured, oh, I better wait a little longer. I walked in on Linda in her pink robe, right? You know, so I waited, and I figured now's the time. Now is the time, as I'm tripping over, right? Rode my little car. Over the road. Parked it upside the house. And I got to his front door. Knocked on the door, and I walked right into his house. Walked right into his house. The whole family's eating at the table. Robbie says, I got this, Mom. He came up to me, walked up to me, pulled me aside, and he said, hey, Rick, when you knock, you've got to wait for someone to answer. You've got to wait for someone to answer. Folks, you are going to have people that are coming at you with all kinds of things going on, and they may not know what to do. They likely don't. Trust, relational, whatever it is, there's all kinds of those things that we call barriers that are happening in here. Hey, all kinds of things. What does your door look like? Hey? Do we apply our norm? Do we apply our thing? Oh, you're late! You should have been here 5 minutes ago. Whew! Hey? What do we do? How do we create that belonging? Hey? How do we do that? Folks, that isn't found typically in your course of study, it's there, you've had a little practice, but there is something called just good, pure human decency that relates and brings that in, and we cannot fake that. Hey? When they see that smile on your face, when they see that tenderness in your eyes, hey? Oh yeah, we can work through anything. Hey? I will help and I will guide as best as we can. Hey? As best as we can. So I asked you folks, what does your door look like? Here's my sandlot. This was 2 summers ago. That's Troy Carlson on the left. He's a captain of police in Southern Ontario. That's Robbie right there. The sorry for what I said while docking the boat, right? There's Ryan Raynard. He's the mayor of Kenora, right? And don't worry about what he's holding. You know, he's a Bud Light guy apparently, you know. And there's Kyle Ferguson. He's a principal in Southern Ontario. Chad Walston was there in that photo, but he's a pilot with WestJet Air. Okay? So those are the 5 boys. You know, that's my sandlot. I often say to folks, I was lucky to meet them, right? Was I lucky? What if I were to tell you this? Imagine that first day when I walked in on Linda. Okay? When I walked into their house. Imagine if she said this instead. Get out of here! Get out of here, you disrespectful Indian, you know, you ignorant, get out of my house. Hey? Teach that boy a lesson. He should know better, right? What would have happened and what would that have done to a boy who she has no clue what my 6 months prior were? She has no clue what my bike ride for 16 mile was, or even wanting to steer it into the next semi. Okay? But the laws of our land and the morals of our land tell us that when folks are disrespectful, we had better redirect them, and sometimes we can get nasty because it's my home. Hey? Whew. Yeah, I didn't get that from them. And what I came to find out, folks, because I went and had dinner with every one of these guys, when they broke at 4:30, they had training. They had training, because when I sat at their table, they would talk about things. Sometimes they'd even bring that black book out, which talks about treat thy neighbor well. Hey? You know, treat others how you want to be treated. The first realm of that belonging was respected, folks. How do we get there? Hey? We got to have a little give and go. Hey? You know? And that's what I noticed from every one of them. They had training. So there was no question that Linda wasn't going to throw my butt out, because that's how they functioned. They gave the benefit of the doubt. They didn't read the book by its cover. And they didn't apply their own. They said, this guy looks a little different than us. Maybe we should learn from him a little. Hey? Because I'll tell you this. I'm going to tell Robbie, and I'll call Robbie on my way home to Fargo today. And I'll say, hey, buddy, you're famous again. You know, Polk County now, Robbie Adamson story. And you know what he says to me every time? Hey, Rick, we learned from you just as much as you learned from us. Hey? Yeah. And that's my upbringing. What does your door look like, folks? Hey? I can't leave here today having you think that my dad was a terrible, terrible man. I really can't. I can't. In years after, I connected with my dad significantly. And I kept saying to him, you know, Dad, you're my hero. Why can't you cut the booze? Why can't you cut the booze, you know? Because again, folks, don't ask what is wrong with you, what happened to you. Hey? Because I'll tell you, even before that conversation with my dad, that last day when I went home and saw my mom, and we got home and all the glory, we were now in a place to where we're going to have some good, tough conversations. And you know what she said to me? I need to tell you about your dad. And I need to tell you some things. There's no excuses for what he did to me. He'll tell you the same. There's no excuse for any of that. But I need to tell you what happened to your dad. You see, when my dad was young, in his formative years as a young kid, he was taken from his home and he was put in a boarding school or a residential school. All of them. And upon arriving, his hair was cut. He was put in a uniform. He was beaten if he spoke his language, folks. He was beaten if he referenced anything about his culture or if he wanted to go home because he was not allowed to go home. That is where he lived, and that is where he made his life, and that's where he learned his formative years. And folks, my dad was also sexually molested in that school. Yeah, till he was 18. And I asked my dad, why can't you cut the bottle, Dad? And you know what he said to me? He said, son, when my eyes close at night and when they awaken in the morning, I'm stricken with guilt. Guilt because I could not protect my 7 younger brothers and sisters from what was being done to me that I know was also being done to him, to them. We lost Jimmy to suicide. All my aunties were ravaged. Hey? Yeah, something happened. Something happened. No excuse. But when we say, why can't you just get a job? Many of your families, and I know a lot of you know the genogram, know an ecogram if you have that in your study. I guarantee you, if you do that, it's more than a family tree. You go in depth, I guarantee you, you're going to find some strand, some instant of where there is a break in the entirety of what family would be, in the entirety of what community could possibly be, and it's bleeding in our communities right now today. Whitefish Bay, White Earth, any place that we go. Normally when I have a phone go off, we got to get up and have a dance, you know, but we're good. I know, geez, we're overtime. But folks, that is what you end up seeing in the symptoms of all of that, what we would call intergenerational trauma. Yeah. When you see the people that are lost, when you see the alcohol, the drug epidemic, the violence, the abuse, any of those things, it's not that we don't love our kids, it's not that we don't appreciate life and everything. We have just lost a way in how to do that. When we don't speak our language, we don't have our teachings, when you don't have anything in there, and we are trying to balance what we call 2 roads, you know, this native world, this non-native world, and sometimes we say we're here. I think we're way more over here. What you learn today is a bridger, folks, because that's all that I know. That's the only thing I know. You know what's crazy? I was supposed to be in this photo. I was invited to go to this photo, but I was busy burying my brother that day. Hey? Ryan White, born June 7th, 1971. Ricky White, born May 30th, 1971. We weren't born to the same parents. But native ways, your cousins and your close people are your brothers. Your aunties and your uncles are literally like your parents, moms and dads. Any elder is like your grandparent. That is our familial structure. You know, doesn't have to be bloodline. But I was busy burying him, and here's your teaching on hair, folks. So that's 2 years ago. There's my braid. We typically only cut our hair when we have something traumatic or most times a loss in our family. So this is me at my kitchen table and my partner cutting my braid. So this is now, I'm up to a 10 braid, I think. But it was down to pretty much nothing. And in our hair, it symbolizes this is the good life that we've led together. I'm honored to have had this life with you. I'm cherishing it. It's memory. It's blood memory. And I need to move on. So it's part of that too. When I lost my dad January 3rd, 1999, and inherited this medicine belt, I cut my hair and I put it right in the casket. Sometimes they'll put it right in as you pour the dirt on the casket in the ground. Those that are close. It's kind of a personal thing, however you think. This is what I thought we should do. Because in the back is a suitcase with my brother, his regalia, not costume, his regalia, his grass dance regalia. Mi'anga Shushkinamago on. It was slid to me by his wife, who I call my sister, and his daughter, who I call my niece, you know, even though not blood-wise, but in our way. They slid his regalia over, and I put that braid in that suitcase, and it still is there right in my home today. All of these things, folks, what does your door look like? Because as we think about my dad, and I'm going to quickly just scan through these, in United States alone, over 500 of these boarding schools, dozens right here in this area for well over 100 years. The last one closed in 1997. I attended a day school. It was not a boarding school, but I was beaten as well, slapped right in the face if I spoke my language. I have a little hard time hearing in this ear because of the amount of times my ear was pulled. That was at Father Moss School. I went there until 4th grade, and then it was finally closed. Closed down, but every time I drive by it in Sioux Narrows, I get a bad taste. So these are the things, again, the intent and design was to kill the Indian and save the man. That's what was said right on our governmental floors, and it was started. This is the original architect, Colonel Richard Pratt, who said, kill the Indian and save the man. We got to do whatever we can. What better way than to go after their kids? And here's the thing, folks. This is Carlisle Indian Boarding School. You could draw a line right up the middle, and half did not come home. Every one of these schools, from my record and my research, and I went to this one, had a cemetery built right beside the school. And who was in the cemetery? The kids that attended the school. Many with graves that are marked unknown. Imagine that in your DNA and your life. I guarantee you something's going to happen. Imagine the generations that follow, the loss, the formative years that are lost, the generations of parenting that is lost, as a result. Folks, this is not anything about CRT or critical race theory. This is a good friend, Dr. Emily Sargent. She does a lot of work on this in the area. She graduated right in this area, and she talks about all of these things, the effects. This is all the stuff that you see, folks. You see all of these things. This is what you end up receiving. You look at the ACEs study, if any of you have ever done this, the Adverse Childhood Experience Survey. I scored a 9 on this in 2 minutes, a 9 out of 10. If you did this with your families, especially those maybe that you know, black and brown, native, average score, we did this in one of the schools I was at, 100% native kids, 8 out of 10 was the average score. They say if you have a score of 3 or more, you've got some serious stuff going on. Okay? Yeah. So folks, we land ourselves back here. And you see the experience that you all had, where you are, the journey. What can we do? Another slide. Yeah, there's much. We talk about common sense and logic, but in the midst of executing our work, sometimes that goes out the door when we're hit with a challenge or emotional thing, so it's nice to have a little guide. Maslow's always good. Our families typically struggle with those bottom 3. The bottom 3 is not happening. I use Erik Erikson too. We think of all of these things, all the stuff that we're supposed to dominate. I look at these things and apply a native person. We are not winning those stages of development. Yeah. Again, that framework is for you. You know? Yeah. Again, folks, we'll come full circle. Want to thank you all. I never know how this is going to go. I'm a spirited person and I lead a lot with my emotion. I'll use I'm sorry in this language for the 15 minutes of overtime. You can use me as an excuse with your bosses. Victoria here will vouch for you. Just deeply honored for this opportunity to have shared. Everything is yours. I know it can be overwhelming, but everything is yours. This is an opening. And again, what does your door look like? Hey, folks, what does your door look like? Think about that. And so I like to send folks on their way with the help of another one of our cultural tools. This we call this a hand drum. Holding it in my hand, a hand drum. During COVID, one of my roles with I sing with Whitefish Bay Singers. That's my family singing group. You can Google and YouTube that to our singing group, Whitefish Bay Singers. One of my roles on the drum was a song maker. And during COVID, a song came into spirit with me. And you know, during COVID, there was so much going in to COVID, and it still exists now. So much indifference, so much hate and, arguing. You look at social media, so much, oh my gosh, hey? In my home, we decided to get 5, I'm going to probably get 6 shots here soon in my arm, right, as a COVID thing. But back home, the elders talk about what we really need to heal. And that word is Jawendaussawin. Jawenditing. And that's basically loving and caring for each other. And so the song that I'm going to sing for you is a song that invites all of that. That no matter how we end up looking at things, if we don't start doing more of that, I fear for today and tomorrow, for our young ones and of course all of you that are here. So the song that I'm going to sing, I'll sing it one push-up through. That means one time through. I won't go on a real political rant here, and if you want to record, you can. I'll also just tell you all to remain seated. You know, I went to a Catholic wedding just a few years ago, and I haven't knelt and stood so many times in my life in that church. I've only been to church 3 times, 2 for a funeral and 1 wedding. I haven't knelt and stood so many times, but I just followed along. I didn't know what I was doing, but I followed along, and then I got that beautiful teaching later on what it was, right? So just sit. We got to tell you, just sit. Sometimes we, oh, geez, what do we do? What do we do? The other thing that I'll say is this. I'm a big Patrick Mahomes fan. Love the guy. Great quarterback. The Chiefs, I actually don't mind the name. I fear for the monikers and the actions. Whoa! Tomahawk chop, everybody. Whoa! Cultural appropriation. When we disrespect, dishonor, disregard, without maybe even knowing that's unintentional racism, it still feels bad to me seeing that song sung like that. And they won the Super Bowl again. Last year when they won the Super Bowl, I remember watching, and I remember seeing in a bar just like this, full of people in Germany with Chiefs jerseys on, doing that chant. Folks, that song is garbage. It's got no structure to it. Meaning this, it disrespects the very structure of all of our songs. Every one of our songs has a lead, a backup, a first verse, a pause, and a second verse. That one doesn't do any of that. And then they start pounding that drum and get that drum beat. Garbage. Garbage. So my worry is what the education of all of that is. That we're all just this savage Indian, John Wayne and his 6-shooter killing 100 of us, coming over the thing without even reloading, savage, beastly people, uncaring, unloving, right? Gonna rape your women, right? You know, all of those things. The stereotypes, the misconceptions. Can you imagine if they were called the Kansas City Catholics? And they had a nun and a priest as their mascots, and then when the players came out, they'd pour beer on them and say, "This is holy water," you know? How long do you think that would last? Not very long, eh? But yet, our people are pranced out as Chief Wahoo and fake eagle feathers. Those are sacred items, folks. The chiefs only bring out their headdresses like that only on special times. But they're pranced out with the paint and the war paint, which again are sacred. We can educate better. That's what I got to say to that. Here's a song. Again, I want to say it to miigwech, Buju, Rikin Indijnikas, Fargo, Indun Chiba, Gigawabaman, miigwech. Here's the song. Gasha wene migonan, Gasha wene migonan, Gasha wene migonan, Keshe maneto, Gasha wene migonan, Keshe maneto. Keshe maneto, Gasha wene migonan, Keshe maneto, Gasha wene migonan, Keshe maneto, Keshe maneto, Go ahead. Yes, thank you. Miigwech, I want to thank you all. Yeah, miigwech.